No, but what was the reaction when
rights.
homosexuality was legalized? There was so much concern earlier by the likes of you that society will be torn asunder, there'll be all kinds of problems. I mean, I don't know what problems there have been. Actually, things are more peaceful because people from the LGBT community are no longer persecuted or harassed in the way that they were earlier. They have some legal protection which they didn't have earlier.
So Rahul, I am not a prophecy maker. I am only saying in the society as of now, this issue should be discussed in Parliament. If the Parliament in its wisdom thinks, see,
Parliament is hardly functioning on some issue or the other. Parliament is virtually dysfunctional at the moment.
That does not mean the legislative function will be taken over by the Supreme Court. That would be the end of democracy in India. Parliament, the day the sufficient pressure is there on the parliamentarians, they would not like to lose their votes. They will immediately bring it. So what we are discussing is
no, but that is in the case of, I know, the reason I disagree with you for what you are saying is because that would be in the case of a majority decision. When the majority wants something, when it is a minority, like the LGBT community, there will never be a parliamentary majority in favor of that decision because it's a minority right or a minority demand.
So let me answer that question with the best of my ability. We are in a parliamentary democracy where laws are made through majority. Find another system for India. As long as this system exists, laws will be made by the majority. That is how we work. That is how the Westminster model functions. This is how our constitution provides. Till that system is there, nobody can change that system. Even the Supreme Court is bound by their constitutional mandate that the will of the people is reflected through Parliament and it has to be.
Niharika Kharanjiwala, I'm looking at the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, the Muslim Marriage Act of 54, the Special Marriage Act of 54. And as I read this, I'm wondering, what is it that you intend to say in the Supreme Court to suggest that these laws, in the way that they are interpreted, actually have scope for marriage between people of the same sex? Because there's nothing written explicitly in that favor. There isn't much written against either, but there is nothing there to say that you have explicit permission for same-sex marriages. How do you intend to argue this in court?
I'm so glad you asked that, Rahul. And to clarify, the petitions we have filed are under the Special Marriage Act, but since you have asked with regards to other religions, to the best of my knowledge, I'll put forward what I can. First of all, of course, these laws do not reflect anything with regards to homosexual marriage, and of course the Legislative Assembly debates will not either, because at that time these relations were barred by the IPC, so they could not possibly. Secondly, just one small point I wanted to bring up. Why are we acting as though legislature and statute is never changed by interpretation of the court? Suddenly it's done all the time. It's a question of interpretation. Why are we acting as though the interpretation of the law is not the purview of the judiciary? But coming to your point, there is gender-neutral language used in both the Special Marriage Act and the Hindu Marriage Act and Hindu personal laws. In Hindu personal laws, there are several instances where it says two Hindus. In the Special Marriage Act, it says the words any two persons. We are strongly of the belief that in keeping with the Constitution and the Constitution and judgments on the Constitution delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court, there is room for interpretation in a gender-neutral manner. Otherwise, these sections are in violation of constitutional rights. That is what we are bringing forward.
Shiraj, there is no reference, as I read most of the text of this law, to relationship between man and woman. It's not restricted to that. The references are to union between two persons, which the likes of Niharika will argue before the Constitution bench will allow for man, man, woman, woman, or people from the LGBT community to be with each other.
Rahul, can I say something?
Shiraj.
See, Rahul, for the human civilization to go ahead, or Rahul, for the human civilization to go ahead for reproduction, there has to be a union of man and woman, not man and man or woman and woman.
But that's not being stopped. You're giving people the right to choose.
And in India, marriage is irrespective of the people who are whatever religion they are following. You know,
Shiraj, you can reproduce on everyone's collective behalf.
We are pure and pious.
So,
but then see why all this argument that somebody is ailing and somebody is hospitalized, these are all fake arguments, just for the sake of argument. There is no question. Again and again I'm reiterating, we are strongly behind the government. We stand by the government and it stands. That's it.
You're an idiotic person who just stands behind the government and not think for yourself. The problem is that you are the filth. We are not the filth. You are the filth. You just follow the government orders And that's the problem. You need to think for yourself, make sure that your brain is working. So how does me marry my
remove the
partner...
filth and dirt from your mind. You are ailing, you are sick. You are sick and you are ailing.
No, tell me something.
Absolutely, you are ailing. You need treatment.
Man, as healthy as you. I'm a healthy citizen. I pay my taxes. I work. I work
see,
for my
look at the society. What they talk about you.
Government, that's all.
See, you may do anything behind closed doors, but legitimizing same-sex marriage is dangerous for the society.
Exactly, I'm coming to the point, Sriraj.
You remove the dirt from your mind. Remove the filth which you are importing from the West. You are living on the filth which you have imported from the West. This is India, this is Bharat.
Okay, Sriraj, let's not get personal. We're having a debate. Let's try and restrict it to arguments. Let's not go down a filthy tube. That's not the idea here. The good thing is, and I think this is important, is that there should be open debate, because it is when there is debate and discussion that people's views evolve. Especially when a new idea is being mentioned, an idea that society hasn't so far been comfortable with, the more conversations take place, people weigh the pros and cons, and they come to a new view, or a view which is formed on the basis of what they've heard from the likes of Raga, Sridhar and the others. They've also heard Sriraj Nair, they've also heard Desh, Ratan, Nigam, and let's see what happens in the Constitution bench. As I said, 34 countries as of this year have already legalized same-sex marriages: Andorra, Argentina, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Denmark, Ecuador, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Ireland, Luxembourg, Malta, Mexico, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Taiwan, the United Kingdom, United States of America and Uruguay. So there is a long and growing list. And that also would need to be considered by the Supreme Court when this very important discussion takes place.